I usually build big things, human-sized things, like expansive liminal spaces, or rideable vehicles, or props that are big enough to fill up a soundstage. But this project tasked me with a unique challenge, to make something very small, starring tiny little people living in itty-bitty sets, all made with the smallest of tools within a very cramped studio. I went insane. Here's how it happened. When you're coming up with an idea, it's like you're a deity. There is no limit to the grandeur of an idea, which you've come up with and then played back again in the same hit. But then, when you actually start to do the project, you return to the mortal self you have always been. But for now, allow me to enjoy these few moments of blissful imagining. Let that little movie projector in the back of my mind tell me all those sweet, sweet little lies. This part is actually so fulfilling. Perhaps I enjoy it more than any other part of the process? Well, I don't know if that's true. I like to make this part as much fun for myself as possible. You should be having fun when you're planning something, especially when you're planning an exciting project. So I like to do it in a medium that excites me. Personally, I'm very excited by things like stationery, colored pens and pencils, little index cards, cutting different color coding. The final production document, which I would use to actually make the film, was this kind of like a hybrid between a storyboard and a script. I used those little paper rulers that you get for free at IKEA as a kind of a timeline on which I placed each action that corresponds to a specific point along in the song. Once this plot was finished, some days I would go through and add new ideas or rearrange things, but other days I would just play the track and read it over and over and over again, and just try to think of anything that wouldn't make sense to someone who wasn't me. If at this point I don't show somebody else, it is almost certain to fail. It's terrifying to show a half-finished thing to somebody else, especially someone whose opinion you respect, who's the kind of person who you have to show it to. Understanding someone else's opinion of your plan is annoying, because you're always thinking, is this particular issue or revision they may have due to an actual problem with my plan, or do they have to see it to believe it? Right? Are they just not getting the vision which I can see, but which is impossible to communicate over the written word? But remember that you're not the only person who has an imagination and who can make a leap of faith. The study phase is very important. This is where you're actually you're executing your plan, but these finished products that you make are not going to make it into what you're doing. Studies allows you to fuck up without ruining your project. You see, the big idea was for this project to be a stop motion animation. I had done plenty of stop motion animations in the past, but none to the technical caliber that this one had to be. So I came up with a scene that no one was ever supposed to see, except for you apparently, and shot it again and again. I spent weeks perfecting my technique on how I actually interacted with and moved the character for each shot. I changed how the armature worked and even where the character was supported by. I figured everything out. And by the end, I finally had a shot where if I were to include it in the film, I would have been happy with it. You'd think that this would be a success. It was not a success. I did the math. It came out to 1 entire day for a 5-second clip. If I were to animate the entire film at this pace, it would take me 84 straight days of great work days to get the entire duration done. I didn't have 84 days because of this silly little thing called a deadline. So despite the fact that the test went so well, despite the fact that I was fully capable of doing what I set out to do, I had no choice but to declare the project to be impossible. Everything once beautiful was now ugly. It's annoying how reality is the headspace that you're in. One day I woke up and I said, fuck it, I'm gonna make a YouTube video. And that's what I did. I cleaned my studio, I set up a camera, and I said, I have 30 days to complete a stop motion animation. 14 days I gave myself to record, mess up, re-record, and then throw it all together. I just desperately needed a win. I needed to breathe new life into myself and into my space. 14 days later, I've published the video and I liked it and everyone else liked it and I'd formed a new plan for my life. And suddenly I found myself at a coffee shop with a pen in my hand and before me was written the word puppetry. That afternoon, I tore my puppet limb from limb. His stiff wire joints had now been replaced by thin little lengths of bendy jewelry cord. There were now tiny little holes everywhere in which I superglued lengths of sewing thread, which would reach all the way up to his brand new method of movement. The controller. I put a lot of research into deciding how best to make this controller. Human beings have been making marionettes and marionette controllers since the Romans. So there's a lot of cultural knowledge to take inspiration from for my little project. Generally, the first rule of thumb when it comes to a controller is it needs to be very ergonomic. You shouldn't need to have to shift your hand too much. Things should never be out of reach so that you can deliver a flawless performance before a live audience. For me, there's nobody watching me except my insecurities at this point. And I was already putting on a great show for them, so they didn't need to be impressed. This is the worst day of my life. The priority for me was not to be able to do lots and lots of actions strung together, but instead a very small number of actions, but extremely precisely. After a whole bunch of iterations, I had finally made a controller which would make any professional puppeteer scream. Deciding to make this film with live action puppets instead of stop motion animation made things on the camera side so much simpler. Instead of my DSLR feeding through a capture cable into Dragon Frame where each frame was individually processed and then sorted and imported into a timeline and just a nightmare of individual frames, I could just use my normal camera and just press record. Now you must be thinking that with all this work I put in to make it simpler and faster and better, it would just be downhill from here. You're right. It was downhill from here. I was ready to put everything to the test, and with that test came a shocking realization. You see, with stop motion animation, each take takes hours to complete, but you're hopefully only doing it 1 or 2 or maybe 3 times until you get it right. With puppetry, the duration of the take is the duration of the shot, so you can knock out a take very quickly, but it takes hundreds of takes to get it right. Over the duration of 1 day of filming, I managed to accomplish 5 seconds of usable footage. At this rate, it meant that it would take 84 days to complete. No, don't worry. This time is different. I promise. See, with puppetry, I had faith that I would be able to get faster at it over time. With animation, you have to work 1 frame at a time. No matter how good you are, no matter how fast you are, it takes the time that it takes. But with puppetry, the number of times I f up per take is directly correlated with my ability to make the puppet do what I want it to do reliably. And that is a skill issue. And I knew, or at least I had a feeling, that I would get better over time. And with that in my head, I started to film. I proved myself right. Over time, it almost became second nature to know what finger movements translated to what puppet movements. I would just think of the action and the puppet would do it. It's amazing what practice can do. The really fun part for me, though, was building the sets. The first step was to make my table big enough to accommodate the scale of the sets I needed, which meant that by the time I was done, it was taking up just about half the room. Then I built another table on top of the table, making it into a double-decker table. With all of this tiered furniture installed in my room, it sort of turned into a bit of a three-dimensional place. I found myself moving around vertically more often than I was moving around horizontally. I was channeling my inner monkey. This brand new upstairs cubby was also a great place to take naps. It was very cozy. The first set I built was an infinite plain of hills of black sand, occasionally lit by spots of blue light or some orange glowing from the world above. Once that set was shot, I tore it down and replaced it with an icy landscape, illuminated by a single perpetually setting sun, which was just a spotlight pointed at the camera. The third and final set was to be an infinite ocean through which the characters would sail before they eventually ascend up and live amongst the stars. To accomplish this, I lined my desk with a tarp and then poured a couple 100 pounds of water into it. If something sharp happened to make even the tiniest cut in this thin layer of tarp, the jig was up, and my downstairs neighbors would have an upstairs neighbors story impossible to beat. Next, to make the ocean look deep, I poured about 30 pounds of glass shards directly onto the tarp. No, I won't be taking any questions at this time. I did a lot of compositing. Compositing is so much fun because
you can take sort of an old school technical style to it if you like. Compositing is basically when you take a whole bunch of pre-existing assets and slap them together. You can then specify which parts of each image should be transparent and allow the image behind it to shine through. And then finally, you adjust each asset visually, be it creatively or to get it to match to its friends and look like they were one shot in the first place. There was a lot of basic compositing that had to be done, like background replacement or getting two different performances to play at the same time. But there was also a lot of really enjoyable, creative compositing work. For example, my favorite technique that I employed was to glue tiny mirror-polished beads to my characters. The camera would then see the reflection of the big light, the key light, in each one of these little mirrors, which meant that these pinpricks of light were the brightest parts of the frame. Kind of like how right now, this is the brightest part of this particular scene, which means that I can tell my compositing software to treat this particular brightness range differently from how it treats the rest of this scene. This meant that for some scenes, I could completely kill every part of the frame which wasn't one of these pinpricks of light, and then blow the pinpricks up out of proportion so that they halide and glow in an interesting way. And suddenly you have people completely made out of stars. I had now done it. The film was over. I never had to touch those puppets again. But was I happy? Had I delivered the best thing I could possibly deliver? Was the final result even close to those images that had been painted in my head so many months ago? Did this project turn out well in all the different ways you can assess a film? All the way from aesthetic taste to really scary questions like, did the narrative even make sense? Did it evoke the emotions I wanted it to evoke? I had made myself proud as a worker, but had I made myself proud as an artist? I ordered a mochaccino, and the Tim Hortons people were like, we don't have that. And I was like, well, it's a cappuccino, but add mocha. And then they had like a meeting about it, and then they came back to me and were like, okay. I don't know what they did, but it's fantastic, so that's a win. So that's a win from Tim Hortons. I've been in Calgary for a couple weeks to take a dance class. I also spent some time in Edmonton working on a movie, which was super fun. The movie was entirely in Hindi, which means that I have absolutely no idea what the movie is about, despite working on it for 14 days straight. So that was a very fulfilling activity, especially after the Rock movie. That level of social interaction was like a breath of fresh air. And it further solidified what I briefly mentioned in the last video, being alone, I ain't into it. But that's just me. I love cosplaying as the wilderness guy. I encountered this family of tourists from Ontario, and they were asking for directions, and I was showing them my map, where to go, and they were asking about bears, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, I got that thing on me. And they're like, oh, is that legal? And I was like, oh yeah, only if you're hiking. Maybe I'm not cosplaying as the wilderness guy though. Maybe I actually am the wilderness guy. I personally have never encountered a bear. I've seen bears, but I've never actually personally run up against a bear. If I did run up against a bear, I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. I can't make this shit up. There's literally a bear over there. Do you see him? There's literally a fucking bear. Look at that bitch. That's the way to my car. I got it. I'm ready. I'm literally shaking. I'm gonna take a detour. I'm gonna go through the bushes down the highway. See that thing? Time to get the fuck out of here. It means I'm gonna have to walk along the highway, but I'd much rather divert my route than say hello to Mr. Bear. Oh, this is pretty. All right, if the bear comes out at me this way, I'm just gonna run into traffic, and then I won't get hit by the bear. I mean, oh my God, the bear is running. I don't have to walk along the highway for too long. I sure hope that that nice family from Ontario who I gave directions didn't encounter the bear too. Or maybe he got them and that's why he didn't eat me. If there's an abandoned car at the parking lot, I'll know what happened. There's my car. And I don't see their car, which means they got out. They survived, they escaped. No! The fudge got stuck to the paper. This is my fudge! It's time to build another death trap. Now, I have built many death traps in my career, namely the driving bed from a couple videos ago, or last video, I don't know. That one was dangerous due to speed. This one is dangerous due to fall damage. For this project, I want to simulate falling from a height in slow motion, from a top-down angle. So what I'm going to be building today is some type of a seesaw. Let me show you what's up. Hey, focus. So this is what we're looking at. The artist hangs out here. We've got weights up here, which is about the same body weight as the person. And this whole contraption goes so kind of like this. All right, imagine a 45-degree plank here, about as tall. wondering if there's any engineering or calculation going into how I'm putting these cross braces, I'm going off sheer vibe. Oh. Okay, that's too heavy. Too little. All right, that's working out. I am no physicist. At different points along the uppy-downy, there is more or less weight. The weight that balances when it's up is different from the weight that balances when it's down. Like, the center of mass has to change for it to maintain homeostasis. I need another person to help test this.
It's like a seesaw?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, you want me to do this now?
Yeah. Keep going. And is it getting difficult?
Yeah, it's getting well.
It should be fine. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. Ah, that's great. Amazing. So it wasn't like too much. Like, but it only happened when I was like close enough that if it was quick, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, perfect shots of work. Look at me. Call me Archimedes. Good. Okay, thanks for the help. Do you know how to spell success? E-M-I-L. That's how you spell success. You're going up there, buddy. Yeah, I just built it yesterday. To get yourself up to here so that your head is right below. And I will be able to lift it down to the ground. And I got a shot of it with me doing it.
And it looks good.
Okay.
I was so stoked.
You into this?
Sorry.
That one was a bit of a rough one. It feels so good to be immersed in a project. I think about nothing but the project. I feel grounded. I don't feel like I'm floating. I feel like I have purpose. It's a crazy good feeling. I am most excited when I am completely immersed in something. It's like I have horse blinds on, you know? There's no room for existential dread when you're obsessed. Today we are taking a journey to Saskatchewan. I got my sandwich ready to go. Anyway, that's my opinion. I am going to need to find 6 locations. One of them I know it exists. For the life of me, I never stored its location. So I'm going to have to re-find this location. That's okay. I've done it before. I'll do it again. After that, well, we'll get to after that.
Loaded with a variety of fairly ordinary seashells, when suddenly he saw me plunge my arm swiftly into the net, pull out a shelled animal, and give a conchological yell.
Well, that was unexpected. See that weird sign there? Isn't that cool? Completely messed up barn. The nice thing about cameras, excuse me, I'm talking here. A freaking bird. Well, I found some more spots. This one doesn't have a nifty little no trespassing sign. Oh, that's a great shape. Oh my god. I just saw an owl fly out of here. Oh my goodness, we got a bathtub. There's the owl. What's up, bro? Whoa, he's beautiful. I chased down the truck that put the dimple in my windshield, and he had me call his employer, and he's gonna just replace my windshield. Find a cool spot, I drop a pin, I save it to my list. Spooky tree. I take my reference image 1193, 11, whoa. When the rock hit my windshield, I felt a sprinkle of shards of glass hit my face. Because if I wasn't wearing glasses, one of those shards could have made its way directly into my eye. And there are other times too, when something has come flying at my face. So those of you who don't wear glasses, you know, it's almost enough to develop a phobia. When I don't wear my glasses, I'm very, very critical of the world around me and its ability to fly directly at me. So how do you people who don't wear glasses do it? How do you get over the fear of walking out into the street every day and just hoping nothing flies at your face? This is the literal sand dune. It's quite large, and there are a couple of them, all surrounded by your typical Saskatchewan aesthetic. Gonna try to make it to that hill because I'm gonna be flying my drone light in this location probably. These are the lights I'm gonna be hanging from the drone. 3 times 4 is 12. Ooh, I'll be just over. Do I risk it? You know, I think I'm gonna play it safe. The big idea is to not accidentally cover the vertical distance sensors or the top-down cameras. No one has attempted this before. I'm just gonna Velcro it up. Good. If the string can lift the drone can lift the string. Works Hey, no. I feel like I'm an expert in the field. Most YouTubers have like a really clean, beautiful studio. I guess I don't lie. Plastic. Pizza pie. Three. Okay. What I really want is that HVAC shiny tape. Ooh, I like that shape. I flipped it around upside down. I calibrated the IMU and the RTH and the SSMP. I think the string is just a little bit too short. It's causing it to kind of wobble. I just had a really stupid idea. This is the stupid idea. Just tape the thing to the bottom of the drone. This is what's gonna happen. The propellers aren't gonna be able to catch enough lift. It's gonna freak out. It's gonna careen into the nearest tree, and I'm gonna have to catch it and cut my finger on the blades. All right, I'm gonna keep thinking. I'm trying with only one light. It just kept going up. I had to jump and catch it before it left the nail. A couple predictions came true. It's gonna careen into the nearest tree. It did careen into the ground, not a tree. Didn't get that far. And I'm gonna have to catch it and cut my finger on the blades. And I ended up bleeding. The prop did hit my finger. The hat worked!
I think this is definitely going to be giving prop circle.
I don't even know which direction it's facing. Oh, wrong way. Where is it going?
I don't know, I'm scared.
All right, it worked!
Woo!
talking with you looking up.
We're f***ed. We're f***ed. I have 48 hours until my plane leaves, which means that I have time for one more project.
This year, I have been very happy. This year, I have also been very sad. And I can prove this. Here's a graph. So far, this year is turning out to be very happy. And if you wanted to stay like that and not go like this, click the share button and send it to someone you think might enjoy it, because that's like crack for the algorithm. I very much appreciate your help. I'm back at my home in Montreal now. Everything is just as I left it. I wonder what I can do in this studio next.